Hey, everybody, Eric Crawford, John Lewis. We thought we would do something a little bit different for us, and that's talk a little bit of NFL every Monday. Certainly, there's enough local guys with NFL connections to look at what they do, and there's plenty of stories around the league to talk about. John Lewis, what jumped out at you on this second NFL Sunday?
Well, I mean, the thing that jumped out was Lamar Jackson's incredible performance that ended up going for naught. I mean, he said, if we don't win, it doesn't really mean a lot. But it just seemed like the Ravens had that game in hand. He has a 300-yard passing game and a 100-yard running game, and it just the defense. Unfortunately, he can't play safety or defensive back there because he was doing it all and set an NFL record. And that 79-yard touchdown run, it was incredible. But it seems like in that division, man, defense is at a premium. And then to let the Dolphins come back. Dolphins are not a bad team. I think the Dolphins got a little slandered before the season. They're a good team with good offensive weapons. I think that's what we saw Sunday. That was definitely jumped out at me.
Usually in something like this, and I think they said this was the first 21-point fourth quarter comeback since 2005. So it's a historic comeback in modern football terms. Usually you look at it and there's like some kind of bad turnover or egregious coaching decision or something like that. And there wasn't any of that. There was a 3-and-out in the fourth quarter by Baltimore that could have been handled better, a couple of incompletions from Lamar. And then there was a series where they go for it on 4th and 1, and then the defense is keyed in on Jackson, and they stop him, and they turn the ball over on downs. Well, you can pick apart anything, but the bottom line is in the NFL today, if you're up 21 in the fourth quarter, you got to finish that off. And the offense could have used up some more time, but you figure Baltimore Ravens defense should be able to handle that. They're pretty good, known for their defense, but they didn't do it against Tua and the Dolphins. And, who knows what it was, but it game's in Baltimore. You can't blame the Heat in Miami.
Yeah. I mean, they couldn't do that, and I think, not having the Dobbins hurt the Ravens a little bit, but still, I mean, Lamar Jackson gets over 100 yards rushing. So, this was flat on the defense. It was absolutely flat on that defense.
Yeah.
And we saw it. And you mentioned the comebacks there. I think there were 8 games yesterday where there were some double-digit comebacks. I mean, it was incredible. Yeah. But, again, defense was at a premium.
You figure, though, 21 of 29, 318 yards and 3 touchdowns, and you rush for 119. You figure that should be enough.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. And the fact that it wasn't, that's a little bit of a concern. But Lamar didn't do anything personally to hurt himself.
No.
Yesterday. But again, these are games you need to win, and winning is on quarterbacks. So he's gonna hear it. I'll tell you some other folks that are hearing it right now today are the Cincinnati Bengals. And I don't know. There's always the Super Bowl loser in recent memory has not fared well. It's been a tough thing to come back from a loss in the Super Bowl and have another good season. And yet the Bengals, to me, were poised to be really good this year, and they still are. But I think their offensive line clearly is a problem. They added some interior guys in the offensive line. Those guys have not come together, and Joe Burrow's getting beat up. And when he's not getting beat up, last week he's throwing interceptions. So he didn't play in the preseason. They didn't, whatever the preseasons are not offering some of these new offensive linemen to gel, but they're going to have to come together.
Yeah, I mean, I think in 2023, you're going to see Joe Burrow playing at least a few series in the preseason. But I think you're onto a point there with that offensive line, kind of revamped but not coming together. And the reason that they try to revamp the offensive line is because Joe Burrow was getting killed last year. And we saw it again on Sunday where, he's actually on pace now. And this is not going to happen. But if you believe in like the baseball pace, he is on pace to get sacked 136 times. Okay, you're not going to win a whole lot of games like that. But I think starting 0-2, that is a huge concern. I think there are only 3 teams since 2000 that went to a Super Bowl and then started the next season 0-2. You're right. There are Super Bowl hangovers. And there have been many times we've seen in the past 22 years and even back into the 90s where a team would go into the Super Bowl, minus the Dallas Cowboys or the Buffalo Bills. The teams would go into the Super Bowl and then not even make the playoffs the next year. But starting 0-2, that is a huge concern, I think, for the Cincinnati Bengals. And again, I mean, at what point do you have to say like this? It's time for this offensive line to gel because Burrow can't keep taking these hits. I mean, we've seen what has happened in the past.
Yeah, and you lose at home to a division team in Pittsburgh. Then you go on the road and lose to a Dallas team that's playing with a backup quarterback.
Cooper Rush
shouldn't be that good. Cooper Rush is 2-0. Quarterback controversy in Dallas.
You're right.
Yeah, I think it's gonna. There's already a lot of talk about preseason. I think 11 NFL starters did not take a snap in the preseason, and 8 of them lost on opening weekend.
Yeah,
and of course Burrow, I think, would have taken some snaps. He was off an injury. He was coming off of had surgery, an appendectomy. In fact, all season he couldn't play the preseason.
Right.
But and again, they're not hitting as much in practice. The pads aren't on. I think all that comes into effect on some of the when you have a new group like an offensive line where so much is based on timing and playing together. But some things are going to have to change. I think the Bengals. I do think they'll come together, and they're not in like a brutal division, so they should be able to make some things happen once they get it going. But this is not the start anybody envisioned for them. And speaking of starts that nobody envisioned, let's go to the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah.
And of course, now here I think Jacksonville is going to be better. I think Trevor Lawrence is good.
Yep.
I think the more they come together, the more experience they get, the better Jacksonville is going to be. So this isn't. And let's keep in mind. I saw the stat 10 times yesterday. Jacksonville has now won 8 in a row at home against the Indianapolis Colts. So this wasn't necessarily a surprise. And yet the Matt Ryan through 2 games has not been impressive. I don't know that I expect him how impressive I expect him to be. What's going on with these guys?
Well, I think it's not the Matt Ryan experiment. It's not working. The Phillip Rivers experiment didn't really work. The Carson Wentz experiment didn't really work. The Colts are going to have to figure out the quarterback situation. I don't think Matt Ryan is the answer. The offensive line, certainly not the answer. I mean, you got Jonathan Taylor, who was the rushing leader last year, and he gets, I think, 54 yards rushing. Now, there's your main problem there. And I think the Colts only had about 10 offensive possessions, and it was, I think, 5 punts. There was some turnovers. The offense just was not getting it done, as one of the Colts players said, and I'll clean it up here. He said it was embarrassing, and it was embarrassing for the Colts. But I think what's going on there is this offense is not coming together. And you're right. Don't take anything away from Jacksonville. We saw flashes of Trevor Lawrence last year of what he could do, and then we would see like, oh, man, that was just a bad throw. I mean, he goes 25 of 30 for 235 yards, 2 touchdowns against the Colts. I don't know that he went from that level to that level all of a sudden. I think there's some of it that has to be hung on the Colts defense. That offensive line, though, just absolutely brutal.
Yeah, and Lawrence is a good quarterback. I think,
yes.
For whatever other struggles that are going to come to you in Jacksonville, he's good. And he had a coaching debacle and all that other stuff last year, but he'll be good. And we should mention we're going to try in these things on Mondays to make sure we give credit to the guys with local connections that do well. Josh Allen got off to a big start. He had 2 sacks like in the first 2-3 series.
Yeah,
that's what he finishes with. But again, here's a guy getting healthy and going to be an impact guy there for Jacksonville, and that's good to see for him.
Yeah, it is. And Josh Allen said before the season, he said he wants to be an All-Pro, and I think some people might have rolled their eyes like, yeah, everybody wants to be an All-Pro. I think Josh Allen is going there and starting to back it up. Now, again, we just talked about how bad the offensive line was, but he took advantage of the situation. Yeah, those 2 early sacks, had a tackle for loss. I think, he is. That was an outstanding start for him. Not to mention, I think he can continue to do this and get better and better. And he's a guy that, you're right, he deserves some accolades, and he very well could be making a case for All-Pro as we start to get further into the season.
Well, John Lewis, you're an All-Pro. We're going to do this all season, so stay with us. We're going to talk a little more NFL than we usually do. We could talk a lot longer probably about it.
Totally.
We won't drag people through that just yet. We might on some occasions. But thanks for watching, everybody. If you like it, if you have features you'd like to see on this, feel free to hit us through email, Twitter. We're all there. John Lewis, Eric Crawford. Thanks for watching.